What is the best way to learn how to code? What's up, you guys? Clint here with Code Commerce. If you're new here, a lot of what I've done in the past to create, coding tutorials based around web development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some JavaScript libraries such as React. But I'm starting to make some new type of videos for you guys. And in this video, I just want to talk about the industry and more specifically, what's the best way to learn how to code, how I would learn how to code if I was starting over from scratch, okay? Getting started in coding, web development, programming, however you want to frame it, can be quite daunting, okay? It's hard. It's not a simple task. Coding is hard, but rest assured, because in this video, I'm going to lay out the best way to learn how to code. In my opinion, if I were to start over, as a complete beginner from scratch with absolutely zero coding experience. Let me just preface this by saying I'm biased to web development because that's what I feel most comfortable in, and it's what I've built my channel around. So, I assume you're watching web development if you're watching this video, but it translates into learning any type of coding language. So before you get started, you need to develop some sort of plan or, a roadmap to get you to your end goal. If you're driving across country, somewhere you've never visited before, it'd be crazy to travel without a map. And, this is your career and it's your livelihood. It's how you're going to make money. It doesn't make any sense to not have a roadmap while you're learning how to code. So let's break this down to 4 simple steps. Step number 1 is choosing a programming language. So, if you're watching this video, you've seen any of my other videos, I'm going to assume you have some basic knowledge of, various programming languages or scripting languages, or at least you've heard of their existence, right? There really isn't much need, in my opinion, to spend much time thinking about what language to learn. If you like web development, then HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you like Android development, then, you want to work on backend apps and server-side apps and mobile apps, then I'd probably go with Java or C# or C++. Though these are going to be a lot more difficult to learn, especially as a beginner, in my opinion. So like I said, I'm going to lean heavily here on web development because that's the area I feel most comfortable in, but really it translates into any other language. So, now that you've chosen your language, JavaScript, for example, like how do I actually start learning, right? What's the fastest and most efficient way to learn how to code? So the fastest way to learn is to just start coding and start building websites. I chose web development. I just started learning the basics, HTML and CSS. These are the basics of web development. They can create mobile responsive websites. You can style them. I would suggest starting off on, free Codecamp or maybe some Udemy courses. That's what I did. Colt Steele is a pretty awesome teacher on Udemy, and it's a really great place to start learning the fundamentals. If it's your first time using the Udemy platform, I think you can get a full course that's probably a 40 or 50, even longer hour of a course for $20 at most. Once you learn HTML and CSS, then you can easily start building websites for, friends and family, and even do some freelancing for some small businesses. This is an excellent way to make a little bit of extra cash while you're learning how to code, okay? It's not going to be the 6-figure tech salary, with stock options and PTO and retirement, but I'm telling you, you can easily charge $15 to $30 an hour while you're learning how to code. This is exactly what I did when I was first starting out, so I know for a fact it works. And, plus this is going to get you some working knowledge in web development, while earning a little bit of cash while you learn. Plus you can start building your web portfolio and gain experience working and, communicating with clients. So learning how to interact with clients and, just communicating with people in general is so crucial, when you're working in a professional environment. So this is a great place to learn if this is something that's a little bit new to you. Step 3, after learning HTML, CSS, and building a few websites, hopefully you've made a little bit of cash in the process, start learning JavaScript, okay? This is how we make our websites and web applications interactive, like things like form submission, and, authenticating users, which is, creating a new account for a user and letting that user sign into the account. That's going to be coupled with some sort of, back-end technology and database, or maybe even, doing things like dark mode and light mode, which, that can be done with CSS too, but, you get the idea. CSS makes our websites look cool. JavaScript makes them do cool things and makes them interactive. After learning the JavaScript basics, you're going to want to learn a JavaScript library, something such as Angular or Vue or React. These are the 3 more, popular options. I chose to focus on React. However, just something worth noting, if you do a quick job search on Indeed, for example, I've noticed there's a lot of Angular dev positions out there. So, just something worth noting. Personally, I wouldn't spend too much time deciding which library to learn, React or Angular, because I think you'll find that once you learn the basics of JavaScript and once you pick up one library, even though they're all a little bit different. Like once you learn one, it's going to be quite easy for you to pick up another framework or library. I'd probably recommend starting off with something like React or Angular. So after learning a library, you may be lucky enough to find a job, but in my experience, you're going to need to familiarize yourself with a few more things, okay? You're going to need to learn some sort of query language, like something like SQL or NoSQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, or not only Structured Query Language. Query languages are how applications talk to databases and organize all of our information. These are relatively easy to pick up, especially if you've already learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This should really be a bit of a breeze for you to learn. You don't have to master those, but make sure you just have, at least a decent understanding. So now that you've learned how to build, some pretty cool web applications, maybe you've built a few sites and hopefully you've made a few bucks, maybe doing a little bit of freelancing. Now it's time for step 4. So step 4 is going to be to start applying for jobs. But in the meantime, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with coding challenges. Now, what are coding challenges? Basically, they're little, puzzles and problems that employers will give you to solve with writing code. Often you will complete these interviews live via Zoom, although some places you might still go in and actually write out coding challenges or, solve these coding challenges on a whiteboard actually in person, which can be quite intimidating even for, a more mid or senior level developer. So how do you prepare for these interviews and these coding challenges? I would suggest starting out on eatabit.com. So there's a link in the description below. So I do get a small commission if you sign up, but it's probably the best place that I found to learn as a beginner. So what is Eatabit? Basically, it's just like a coding challenge platform. It gives you these little coded relating puzzles, much like you would get in a job interview. However, these are a little bit easier to solve than the ones you get in the job. That's why I recommend Eatabit if you are a beginner. So, it's exactly what I used as I was starting out. I tried sites like LeetCode and a couple others, and it just kind of made me feel really dumb because they're really hard to solve, especially as I was like starting out, and it was really discouraging. Once you can consistently solve these problems on, Eatabit, I would recommend moving on up to something a little bit more challenging like LeetCode. So you'll find out that a lot of these employers actually pull questions directly from LeetCode. So another good site is algoexpert.io. Though they do charge a little fee, I think it's maybe somewhere between $75 and $100. Definitely worth it in my opinion. Clement and the co-owner, I forget his name, but they give really great in-depth explanations on all the problems. They break them down. So a lot of the explanations are in JavaScript, some are in Python. So it's really, really informative. So really, really great site. However, if you can't afford that, which I understand, if you can't afford it, LeetCode will do just fine. Now that you have your portfolio built up, you're consistently solving these coding challenges, on LeetCode. Maybe you've even had a couple interviews underneath your belt. Now would be a good time to start talking with a recruiter. Now, there's a lot of recruiters out there, some good, some not so good. So you might have to talk with, several different recruiters to really find one, that you mesh well with. And even talking to multiple recruiters is okay too. So, a good recruiter, if you tell them, hey, I solve problems really, really quickly or, quite well on LeetCode, if they don't know what LeetCode is, then run the other direction, guys. Like a good tech recruiter should know exactly what that is. They'll understand the process. And if you let them know and prove to them like, hey, I interview quite well, I can solve these problems, rather quickly, consistently, then guys, they're going to put you into these interviews and they will get you placed. So guys, getting a job is not going to be easy, especially if you don't have a degree to back it up, but it is 100% possible, you guys, I promise you. Don't give up, keep building applications, stay consistent, and follow these steps, and I promise you will end up finding a job. Thanks for watching, you guys. I'll see you on the next one.